Next up is Arthur's request. It'll be on a video game, and one that isn't animal themed. But hey, we're nearing the end of the season this year, so why not? It's Psychonauts 2! But wait a minute, how can I review this game without reviewing the first? Well, I can give you a quick rundown. Psychonauts was a game made by Double Fine Productions, who were formed by former LucasArts developer Tim Schafer in 2000. He and other LucasArts colleagues created Psychonauts as their first game, and the first in the platform adventure style, as opposed to the point-and-click adventure format they had before. And it sure shows if you actually play this game. Anyway, the plot centered around a kid named Rasputin Aquato, who breaks into this government-run camp for young psychic kids as he desires to become one of the elusive psychonauts that the camp counselors are a part of. While he's allowed to stay until his parents pick him up, he does end up learning about various powers and abilities from the counselors. But then strange things happen when kids start losing their brains, by literally sneezing them out, as part of one counselor's goal of building brain-powered weapons of war. So Raz has to put a stop to that. The game featured a lot of witty dialogue and writing that Schafer and Eric Wolpaw made possible. It, along with the amazing visuals by artists like Scott Campbell and Nathan Stapley, make for an incredibly engaging experience as you go through the many different mind worlds that exist in everyone's psyche.
And then I gave Lady a bone.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious.
And the sea shall run white with his rage.
Great, well, I'm off to go kill myself.
Granted, being the first of its kind for Double Fine, the gameplay can be frustrating with how unbalanced the platforming is or how the collectibles work. It can be extremely annoying towards the end of the game, and 100%ing can be a chore. Otherwise, it's worth it for the fun, but also meaningful story that covers different mental states and such. Surely, a sequel could even expand on these existing concepts and improve everything overall. And they sure did! Eventually. Obviously, Schafer was interested in doing another game, but needed to get the idea pitched and find a publisher. Mojang even offered to do it, but that didn't happen. They later did crowdfunding through Fig, which was highly successful, got multiple investors and studios, were also acquired by Xbox Game Studios, but eventually the game would come out in 2021. Of course, there are details I had to skim over that made it sound like there would be some issues, but ultimately what came of it is easily one of the best games they ever done, and honestly, I feel it to be one of the best games of that year. And because it's so damn awesome, I won't be showing you everything, but I'm going to do everything I can to convince you that this is worth your time. So let's do this. First off, the game does offer a recap of what happened in the first game in case you didn't play it, which would mean you don't have to play the first one. I disagree, if only so you can enjoy the voice acting as well. It also has a recap of the VR game that came out during the development of Psychonauts 2, that called Rhombus of Ruin. Basically, following the end of the first game, Raz and the counselors head to where the leader of the Psychonauts, Truman Zanato, father of Lily, a major supporting character and love interest to Raz, who was kidnapped by one Dr. Loboto, who previously helped coach Oleander, the rogue counselor I mentioned, steal brains before Oleander redeemed himself. Our heroes think that Loboto couldn't have pulled this off on his own and decide to set up an elaborate mental construct to try and extract information from him. That's where the game begins proper, in what looks to be a Psychonauts cubicle office. Obviously, Raz is a Psychonaut now, and it's like he's complaining that he's just doing office work.
Everything okay in here, Raz?
Oh, hey Lily. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I've dreamed about working at Psychonauts headquarters all my life. I just thought it would be more, you know?
And by the way, Raz is voiced by Richard Horvitz, who I don't think I need to explain what he's been in. Pretty much all the voice actors from the first game returned to play the characters in this sequence. For instance, Lily is voiced by Nikki Rapp, Sasha 9, who was my favorite agent in the first game, is voiced by Stephen Stanton. Mila Vodello, who is Sasha's love interest, is voiced by Alexis Lezen. And Coach Oleander is voiced by Nick Jameson. Nick also voices Loboto, who the agents seem to be making him Employee of the Year within this world, but only if he gets his benefactor to sign for it.
Just a formality. You just need to get this form signed by your boss.
My boss?
It's funny how he's a grown man, yet they treat him like the kid who needs his parents' permission to do anything. This does lead into a tutorial on how to actually play the game, or at the least get reacquainted with how it controls. For the most part, it plays like the first game, where you can walk or run depending on how your control stick is used. You can attack with a psychic fist construct, use telekinesis. Basically, most of your abilities that you get in the first game come back as starting abilities, and they work a lot better than they did before this one. More on that in a bit, but also I gotta say, with the increase in technology, the game not only looks pretty, but they can pull off all kinds of cool effects.
So long!
The first game had its own fair share of interesting visuals, but they really amped it up for this one, to where I can't even fathom how they pull it off. It almost seems seamless a lot of the time, like you go from gameplay 1 minute and then an elaborate cutscene in the next. Getting back to gameplay, you do see the return of the same collectibles as in the first game, the main ones of note being figments and emotional baggage. Emotional baggage requires finding their respective tags, you can make them happy and collect them. Figments are these colorful images that often reflect what one would see in that person's mind. Of course, the first game had the problem of them being a bit saturated and hard to find, and usually there's far too many to count and no way to know where they are unless you search every square inch of the area to get it. In this game, they're much easier to spot and there are ways to know if you get all the collectibles, like the Psy Popper generator. In both games, it lets you warp around the mental world, but when selecting an area, you can see an indicator letting you know if you got everything. There's also an item you get in the post-game that makes it easier to find the missing figments. Both collectibles help towards increasing your rank, which in turn allows you to upgrade your various abilities of your choosing. Before, the upgrades were predetermined, but not this time. One other notable collectible comes in the form of memory vaults. They usually represent what a person is truly thinking and is how you're able to learn more of a character's history. The actual memory takes the form of a slide film. Typically, they have no words, so you pretty much interpret what's happening from what is being displayed. These, on top of what is going on in the mental world, make for some incredible storytelling. But more on that later. Let's talk combat. In the first game, while you had your psychic fists, you also had access to abilities like pyrokinesis, where you engulf an enemy in flames, Psyblast, where you can shoot lasers at enemies, and you can use telekinesis, which mostly held enemies, but you can toss stuff at them. However, outside of Psyblast, most of these abilities were clunky to use, as enemies didn't always have stun animations. It was easy to get hit a lot, and difficult to get a hit in. This game fixes that by having actual impact to your attacks, while also giving you the ability to dodge. They also change how your abilities work, like pyrokinesis does AoE damage around you, and telekinesis lets you pick up objects and shoot them outward instead of just lightly tossing them. There's also a greater variety of enemies to deal with. Before, you mostly dealt with the censors, these dudes in suits who go around trying to stamp out intruders from a person's mind, as well as personal demons who like to explode a lot. There were others, but here you also fight things like regrets, doubts, bad ideas. Yeah, these are pretty deliberate, and further reflect the mental state of the person whose mind you're in. The overall difficulty is about the same, but this time it feels fair. Like you can develop skill for this game and be better at it much more legitimately than in the first one. I guess all those years of developing games helped them prepare for this one. Anyway, Loboto's mind seems to be merging with the false one Sasha made, as the office complex becomes more oral themed. Lots of teeth and gums. And I thought the meat circus was gross. Oh yeah, that. You'll know pain if you get to it. At least I have my trusty levitation ball to get me past these tricky platform sections. What? Okay, it's not perfect, but it's still better programmed than most worlds in the first game. In any case, you follow Loboto to his little tower, where he seems to be afraid of the person that you were seeking. And it's someone very ominous and scary. It warns them not to tell us any more stuff, or else.
You'll have to deal with her.
No, not her! Please don't make me look at her again! No, no! I won't tell! I won't tell anyone! I promise! No, please!
Oh no! What is that? So, we don't know who the benefactor is, but there's someone else we have to be wary of too. Raz tells everyone of the woman he did see, and the others seem to identify her as Maligula, a powerful psychic with hydrokinesis, responsible for the deluge of Gerlovia.
She's been dead for 20 years!
Fort Cruller killed her himself!
A battle from which he never truly recovered.
She was a monster, a ruthless, power-hungry psychic who drowned hundreds of her own countrymen. Nevertheless, she still has her loyal followers to this day.
Sounds like a total monster! Essentially, there's a cult that seems to want to bring her back through necromancy. Given the severity of the situation, they need all the support they can get. Thus, they head to the Mother Lobe, Psychonauts HQ. Here we have Hollis Forsyth, voiced by Kimberly Brooks, who is the second head of the Psychonauts. They tell her about what happened and that there might be a mole in the Psychonauts helping the Delusionists revive Maligula. As everyone gets inside, she questions Raz because she's never heard about him or the fact that he was made an agent by Fort Cruller. Now, Cruller, voiced by David Kaye, was a strange old man who was only seen when around Titanium crystals, as otherwise he would appear with a different personality. He does come to the smell of bacon, though.
This was once just a normal-sized lungfish, minding its own business in a mucus-lined air bubble beneath a semi-dry lake bed.
She does make Raz an intern, and after getting our photo taken and access to the menus proper, we can enter the first major hub area of the game. The hub areas have their own collectibles, like in the first game, such as Psy challenge cards that help further upgrade your rank and abilities. There's also Titanium that you can pick up in many spots on the map, which in the first game took the form of arrowheads. Because old camper mentality, they act as currency that let you purchase other upgrades and such. In the first game, Cruller would sell you this stuff, but here it comes from these machines made by Otto Mentalis. Otto is one of the Psychic Six, who were the original founders of the Psychonauts. We actually meet them all in this game, though unlike everyone else, Otto doesn't appear to have any personal issues. Let's just say he's the only one without a mental world to visit. Other characters we meet include a group of young interns, Norma Natividad, her sister Grace, Morris Martinez, Adam Joseph Gett, Gisu Neriman, and most notably, Sam Boole. Turns out she's the older sister of Dogen from the first game. If you played that, you'll know how he came to be.
I would never do that. I could never kill everyone.
This also makes them the grandchildren of Compton, another member of the Psychic Six that we'll meet later. The interns have their own quirks, with Sam being a fan favorite because of one scene in particular. You get to visit the park outside the Mother Lobe, where she's attempting to make pancakes with animals inside this restaurant.
Look, you can't take the expiration dates too seriously. They're just the food industry, protecting itself from lawsuits.
And protecting us from, like, food poisoning?
No one's getting sick from my pancakes.
Now, that's not the funniest part of all, and yet I'm reluctant to show it because it's so funny. I'd suggest looking up that pancake scene for yourself. Anyway, about Norma.
I think he'll fit in just fine. In fact, I think he'll look cute in our uniform.
I despise Norma. She clearly bullies Raz because he's new and he doesn't suspect anything at first. It leads to her locking him into this closet and stealing his stuff, thus resulting in a new ability. She won't even give your clothes back unless you go find all the items that she needed for some project, so this resembles the scavenger hunt from the first game. Even over time, her respect toward Raz barely increases, and she almost seems antagonistic at times. The others at least improve after the next pair of worlds, But first we have to sort mail, and one box comes down for Truman. And inside that mail is the guy who you were supposed to work with.
What the?
Hey, you guys gotta check this out. The new kid killed Nick.
Not Nick! Anybody but Nick! So a mole does exist, but you aren't allowed to investigate because you're just an intern. Despite promising you'll help Lily get her father healed, you have to do more intern stuff like a class with Hollis about mental connections. The lecture takes place within Hollis's mind world, which initially takes the form of a classroom. Though Norma made you late, you don't get to hear her lecture as she has more important things to do. Still, you do get the ability as you go through the old animation from...
What are you doing, weirdo?
Shut up, it's cool. You can grapple with these floating thoughts and jump to another node. In this world, though, many nodes have actual thoughts that seem to affect Hollis when they're connected. This means you can change her mind and have her let you go on the mission to find the cultists. We end up going deeper into her psyche, which resembles a hospital. In its memory vault, we learn that Hollis was a rising star before a doctor stole her research and took credit for it. We then find the mental version of Hollis choosing between bringing the kids, leading to Raz connecting minds to get her to do it. But because we connected thoughts regarding money and the Psychonauts' financial troubles, this causes her to become a gambling addict. This becomes apparent when she takes us all to this casino and hotel, and while Mila and Sasha are infiltrating the place, she goes off to gamble. The others get in trouble, and the kids tell you to go back into her mind to fix her. Gotta get past the anti-psychic security though, which makes sense considering the kind of world this is. This time, Hollis's world has changed to become more like a combination of the earlier hospital section and a casino. Essentially, the mind world can be made up of different major areas for each individual, which also splits up the collectibles. The other mind vault is here, and we learn that she attempted to use her powers to change the doctor's mind. But things went awry, so Truman showed up to fix them and convinced her to use her powers for good instead as a psychonaut. Having the casino merge with the hospital allows for some interesting metaphors about the medical field being similar to gambling. There's a chance of infertility, or pills not working as intended, or how heart surgery is a literal gamble. The visuals are great, and there are a lot of funny moments too.
Sorry, we're broke after that race, which reminds me. Don't forget to tip your nurses, you cheapskates!
The whole time your fellow interns pop up in the mental world, only to get grabbed by something. You eventually make it to the High Rollers Lounge, which used to be the chapel, but is now being controlled by the amalgamation of bad ideas, Lady Luctopus.
It's time to see what the cards have in store for you.
She acts as the first boss of the game and represents the gambling addiction that Hollis has. Raz may have created her, but he can destroy it. He also has to free the other interns since they can't leave the mental world on their own. Smelling salts is how you can leave in the first game, but you don't have that yet. You have to dodge Lady Luctopus's attacks long enough to start being able to shoot the light bulbs at her tentacles to free your friends. You then connect your way over to her head to blast your way to her heart. It can be a bit tough, but still doable. And honestly, the boss fights in this game get a lot more creative over time. In any case, we defeat Lady Luctopus, and Hollis is back to normal. However, she figures out that she was only acting out of line because her mind was messed up. By you.
Wait! I can explain. You're right. I knew it was wrong the second I did it. I'm ashamed of myself.
The Psychonauts. We're not here to change people's minds, Raz. Not here to fix people. We're here to help people fight their own demons. The ones they already have.
This game might be funny a lot of the time, but there is a lot of grounded material that goes well with themes about mental health. The first game scratched the surface of that, but is greatly expanded here. Anyway, Hollis helps the agents regain control of the situation, and allows you and the interns to sneak into the main office where you think the cult leader is. This leads to a cool sequence where your friends, even Norma, help you get to the office. You find out what the cult is doing and how they have it out for the Psychonauts. There also seems to be something about Lily, which might mean they're trying to get to her or her father somehow. Before you can tell her that, Sasha has you go into the brain tumbler, This lets you return to mental worlds you've been to, but it's also to follow up on what went on with Hollis.
I thought this might be a good place to talk about the incredible access we Psychonauts have, and the trust that goes with it.
I thought I could fix it.
You thought you could manipulate another person's mind to bend their will to your own. There are few things worse, Rasputin.
It's only a shame that he and Mila don't get as much to do in this game after this point. I really like how someone other than Hollis had anything to say about using your powers to change someone. He also gives you smelling salts, making it easier to get out of a mental world. We visit Lily, who can't seem to help her father out, and you show her the picture you found of her and ask if anyone tried contacting her. She feels accused of undermining her father and the Psychonauts, and so she leaves. Then Truman seems to wake up, saying he's trying to keep his cover because of the mole and all that. He knows about Maligula and how they're trying to bring her back, and says that they need Cruller's help in stopping her. You get some bacon and attempt to call him, but he seems distracted after you make mention of Maligula. You check inside his mind, which starts at the campground before crossing a lake. You learn about someone named Lucretia, but when you reach the other side, you find Cruller staring at a fractured mirror, while your head is in place of his head. His mind was fractured long ago and he never recovered from it. Like last game, he's now gone to different areas of the hub world as different personalities, and it's your mission to enter each of his different personalities and recover his different aspects. This is where the game gets really deep in story and character growth. I can't show you everything as I really want you to experience it for yourself. I would like to take this time to talk a little more about things you will do, and even glimpse at worlds yet to come. First off, after getting your mission, you head outside to find that your family has arrived. That's right, even Granny Nona is here to see you. Now, Father Augustus, voiced by Armin Shimmerman, was the main reason why Raz ran away from the circus during the first game. He seemed to hate psychics, but Raz is more understanding since the whole thing was a misunderstanding since he just wanted to keep his family safe. Especially since it turns out a psychic cursed their family to die in water. Like in the first game, landing in water will cause you to jump up a couple times before some water hand grabs you. You do make it back to land still, but you take damage as a result. Here though, Augustus is on good terms with you and even wants to incorporate psychic powers into their acts, despite Mother being against it. Your siblings have a bit of resentment towards you for running away and having them take your place in their acts, while Nona...
He's not as flexible as I'd prefer! Pull harder!
Well, she's Nona. There are side quests that you can do with them that not only further your abilities, but gets you closer to them. Besides that, you need to find other ways to get to the 3 crawlers who locked themselves away from you. Ultimately, many of the mind worlds you visit involve other members of the Psychic Six. The first one being Compton, who has placed himself in psycho-isolation because he feels overwhelmed from hearing too many voices at once.
I got extra. They seem friendly.
Oh no, don't all talk at once, please! I can't take it! I can't!
He's also wondering what happened to his associate Cassie, another Psychic Six member, who disappeared into the Forgetful Forest, which is haunted by...
Bees. My God.
You eventually end up in Compton's mind, which seems to take the form of a cooking game show. The host is some goat puppet that seems to represent Truman, while the judges, also puppets, represent Cruller, Hollis, and Otto. This is a recurring trend where each world has the Psychonauts take different forms depending on the world. Besides this being based on the short demo The Gods Must Be Hungry, also made by Double Fine, this world reflects how much pressure Compton feels from expectations. After all, the level has you prepare different food people in a timely manner. That's a lot to take in, and it perfectly reflects his mental condition. Another fine example is the one for an unknown individual referred to as the PSI King, whose brain you find in brain storage until Raz decided he needed a brain to put into Nick to try and get to one of Cruller's personas. Of course, at first the world is completely empty, save for a dim light that represents the PSI King's consciousness. But as you get him into Nick's body, his senses begin to be restored. It begins with his actual mental world. which you come into after leaving his memory vault, which contained the Dark Void. You have to reunite the 5 senses, who all seem to represent the Psychic 6. Cruller represents sight, and as part of this world's gimmick, you visit an area that is covered mostly in the color and vision of that character. It's a mind world that heavily reflects the different senses, and it's among the prettiest ones in the game. As you go to collect the other band members, PSI King's light form gains more features, and it's kind of funny when he's complete.
I'm sorry I abandoned the band, you guys.
Hey, it's gonna make for a better rockumentary someday.
Now, there is a bit of a spoiler reveal coming, so skip to this point in the video for the last world I want to talk about, or here if you just want to go into my overall thoughts because I'm dabbing into this game too much. But with them all together, he seems to be past whatever it was that happened, so the senses put on a concert, one that is about the 5 senses, and it's here we see the true form of the PSI King, Helmut Fullbear. I wish I could be happy that Jack Black voices him, but recent events changed that. The song is still really good and visually impressive. However, the memory vault seems to leak out something and it takes the form of Maligula. She was partially responsible for his death and his shame for not stopping her before she could hurt his friends.
Him in the ice for 20 years.
Don't listen to her.
Their universe, please! Shut up!
This is meant to show how much someone can backslide on the road to recovery. He had just got his friends back, but the trauma and pressure led to him shutting everyone out again. You end up learning more through it, and by the end, things do resolve for the better. Now, the last world I'm going to talk a bit about involves someone who is especially close to Helmut, and that's Bob Zanotto, a Psychic 6 member and Lily's uncle. He is even more seclusive and wants nothing to do with anyone, except for his plants that he has power over. His mind world takes the form of a solitary island in the middle of an ocean. You might think there's nothing to do until you decide to knock over the psycho portal you used to get in here, and it becomes your boat for this world. You use it to travel to different islands, some having mental constructs of Truman, Lily, and even Otto. They want nothing to do with Bob, and the Lily one is especially sad since he's never met her in person. He's only seen photos, and as such...
My dad sent him pictures for years.
Bob's Lily.
How'd you know?
The problems go deeper than that, though, as these thoughts stem from Bob's alcoholism. This stems from a long time of grief and depression, starting with how his mother died from alcohol poisoning when he was a kid. She was drinking because his father died too, and any good memories he had of her was overshadowed by her alcohol abuse, which then passed on to him. It's followed up by the memory of when Bob was a psychonaut and his dismissal because of the alcohol and grief that made him a danger to everyone else.
His office, I do not envy you.
I helped create this place! Recruited by Lord Cruller himself!
In both cases, you enter these sections through large bottles, and it's part of our effort to help find these seeds to these memories to help Bob grow them in his inner world. However, a construct of himself keeps preventing you from getting them, saying that it's better to not form bonds and just be alone. Of course, the most pain comes in the third bottle, which definitely runs the deepest because it relates to Helmut. It was hinted in Helmut's world that he had a thing for Bob, but this confirms the fact that the two were married before what happened with Maligula. We enter a wedding reception by emerging from inside a cake that I swear has one of the coolest effects ever. You spin around this interior, and somehow that takes you around more cake. You end up at the moment where Bob proposes, and it's the sweetest thing ever. But knowing what happened to Helmut by this point, it makes this a painful memory because for the first time in a long time, Bob was happy to have found someone, only to lose all that later on. This game has so much going for it that just trying to summarize it all wouldn't do it justice. It's a major improvement on the first, but the level at which it covers its themes is phenomenal. They take every advantage to engage in visual storytelling, and it pays off every time. And it's not just this world, but every world for that matter. And they're all further enhanced with an amazing soundtrack by Peter McConnell, who also composed for the first game, the Sly Cooper games, Brutal Legend, and so on. My favorite track is from a world I can't show, but just take in this short sample. The voice acting also really sells you on every single character. These days it can be quite worrisome if a game comes out in a working state, but I'm glad it didn't result in anything bad. This was a game that took its time and ended up becoming better for it. It was well worth the wait, and I'm honestly content with things ending here. Given how this all ends, and I won't spoil anything, I can't imagine another Psychonauts game. It would take a lot of convincing to say that there should be another, but no, it should just end here. Psychonauts 2 is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. It takes everything that made the first game what it is and improve it in every area. On top of having some fun and challenging gameplay, it has one of the best stories and characters ever conceived. It's visually amazing and has a wonderful soundtrack. It's currently available on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. It's pricey, but I guarantee you will have a great time. Play it for yourself and see if you agree. Next time, I need to pick up some peanuts and find a lost dog. I'll see you then.